December 2025, USCIS rewrote the playbook for how they decide VAWA cases, and what used to be enough to get your case approved in the past might not be viewed the same way. My name is Moumita Rahman, and I have been an immigration attorney for the past 16 years, and my office has filed thousands of VAWA applications. So I see in real time what gets approved, what gets RFE'd, and what USCIS has an issue with. So in this video, I'm going to show you the #1 piece of evidence that can get your VAWA case approved all by itself, the exact type of details that USCIS officers are trained to look for, and the mistakes that are now getting cases flagged for extra scrutiny and interviews. And as a bonus, I'm going to explain the second most powerful thing you can add to your case to boost your chances. And it is something that almost everyone has access to. To start, I'm going to show you the #1 piece of evidence that can make or break your VAWA case, and that is your affidavit. Some people call it a personal statement, some people call it a declaration, but it is really all the same thing. It is a written document where you tell USCIS in your own words what happened in your marriage and what you went through. Now, why is this the #1 thing? Because under VAWA, USCIS is required to look at any credible evidence. That means that your actual words carry legal weight. And I'm not just saying that. I have personally gotten VAWA cases approved with just a statement, because this is the only evidence that my client had access to. No police reports, no medical reports, no photos, just their story told the right way. But, and this is really important, a weak affidavit can definitely sink a VAWA case, even if you have a stack of other evidence. Because if the officer reads your affidavit and does not feel that it is real, doesn't feel that it is detailed, or it feels like something that just could not happen to a real person, then all of those documents are not going to save you. So the question is, how do you write an affidavit that is actually credible to a USCIS officer? Well, let me show you exactly how. That way it'll decrease your chances of getting a denial. The officer who review your VAWA case are not just reading your story. They are trained to look at very specific things. And if your affidavit includes these things, then your chances of approval go up. And if it doesn't, then you will probably make it easier for them to deny your case. #1, they want to see a pattern of abuse that is getting worse over time. This is the biggest thing. USCIS doesn't want to see just one bad thing that happened. They want to see when the abuse started and how it escalated. Maybe it started with your spouse controlling who you talk to and when. Maybe it moved to yelling, name calling, and curses. And then maybe it got physical. Or maybe it never got physical, but the emotional abuse just kept getting worse and worse and worse until you felt like you were losing yourself. That gradual escalation is usually what USCIS is looking for. They want to see the timeline in your affidavit clearly laid out. #2, they want specific details, not just general statements. Here's what I mean. If your affidavit says, "My husband is verbally abusive to me," that is weak. This could be anyone's story. But if your affidavit were to say, for example, in March 2023, I came home from the grocery store. My husband screamed at me in front of our daughter because I bought the wrong brand of rice. He called me stupid and said I couldn't do anything right. And after that, I was afraid to go to the store by myself. This is much more powerful. And this is only something that you could describe. And this is what USCIS wants to see. Dates, locations, who said what, when it was said, how it was said, and how it impacted you. These are the details that will make your affidavit more credible and believable. #3, they want to see how the abuse changed your behavior. It is not just enough to describe what your spouse did to you. USCIS wants to know how it affected you. Did you stop going outside? Did you stop talking to your family? Did you start sleeping in a different room? Did you lose weight because you were too anxious to eat? When you describe the impact of the abuse on your daily life, it describes to the officer the emotional and physical effects of abuse, and it shows them what you as a real person actually went through. #4, they're looking for patterns of power and control. USCIS officers are specifically trained to recognize patterns of power and control where one spouse is exerting domination over another. This includes things like controlling your finances, monitoring your phone, isolating you from the people that you care about, threatening to call immigration on you, and using your immigration status to keep you from leaving. And #5, they are checking for consistency. This one is critical. Your affidavit has to match everything in your file. well. The dates in your affidavit need to match the information provided on your I-360 form, and your I-360 form should match the information provided in your Form I-485. The addresses and the timelines need to match up. If your affidavit says that you moved to New York in November 2021, but your I-485 form says that you moved to New York in 2020, then this is going to be an inconsistency that raises a red flag and triggers a request for evidence. Even something small can cause the officer to question your entire credibility for everything else that you said. They cross-reference everything, your forms, your affidavit, your evidence, and also anything that you have said in your prior immigration applications. And here's the thing, if your application gets selected for an interview, and some cases are experiencing interviews right now, your answers in your interview need to match what you say in the affidavit word for word. USCIS officers who conduct these interviews are trained to spot the differences and flag inconsistencies. So now that you know what USCIS is looking for, let me give you examples of the kinds of things that belong in your affidavit. Because a lot of people sit down and write and they think, I don't have anything to say. But when we actually start going through it together, there is so much more beneath the surface that they just haven't thought about. Number one, immigration threats. If your spouse has ever said things like, if you leave me, I'll call immigration, or I brought you to this country, so you better listen, or without me, you'll get deported, or even just plainly, I will call the police or immigration on you, then these are immigration threats that definitely belong in your affidavit. USCIS takes this very, very seriously. And in fact, this is one of the reasons why the immigration option underneath the VAWA was even created, because using someone's immigration status against them is one of the clearest signs of abuse in a marriage. Number two, financial control. If your spouse didn't let you work, or took your paycheck, or refused to put your name on documentation or bills, or would control your accounts and not give you access to money for things like food or other necessities, then this can be considered to be financial control. Number three, isolation. Did your spouse cut you off from family, or they did not want you to have friends? Did they prevent you from learning English? Did they not let you leave the house unless you were with them? Or if they let you leave the house, they constantly monitored your location and bombarded you with messages? All of this is evidence of abuse. Number four, verbal and emotional abuse. Name calling, cursing, humiliating you in front of others, telling you that you're worthless, making fun of your accent, your cooking, your appearance, and then if you get upset, saying that you're being sensitive or it never happened or that it's crazy can all be signs of both verbal abuse and emotional abuse. Telling you that you're being crazy or that you imagine the abuse is considered to be gaslighting, and USCIS officers are trained to recognize it. Number five, physical abuse. Any unwanted physical contact, shoving, slapping, hitting, pulling your hair, or throwing things at you. And I also want to point out that if your spouse pressured you to have sex or was physically intimate with you without your consent, then this can be considered physical abuse as well, because it is considered to be sexual abuse. You should definitely put this into your affidavit, no matter how difficult it is to describe what happened. Number six, digital control. If your spouse was checking your phone, tracking your location, reading your messages, going through your passwords, breaking into your accounts, recording your conversations, or monitoring you in different ways, then this goes in as well. Number seven, using children as leverage. If your spouse threatened to take the kids away or used custody as a way to control you, or said things like, if you file for divorce, you will never see the children again, make sure you include this. And number eight, sabotaging your immigration case. If your spouse refused to show up to your immigration interview or withheld documents that you needed for a case or lied to USCIS about your marriage, this is a form of abuse. And I can tell you from my experience that USCIS understands and sees it this way as well. They see it all the time. Now, you don't need all of these to be in your affidavit, but if you have gone through them, then you should include them. And you should describe each of these categories with sufficient detail, including names, dates, locations, and other factual information that help flesh out and give color to the event. But here is something that most people do not recognize. What you put in your affidavit the wrong way can also hurt your case, just as badly as leaving something out. So before you write a single thing, here are 4 things you need to avoid. Number 1, do not use legal language. If your affidavit has phrases such as extreme cruelty or battery or I suffered substantial extreme cruelty, then this is probably a red flag and doesn't make your affidavit credible. And when a USCIS USCIS officer reads it, they're not going to believe that these are your words. They will just assume that you use the template or use legal language that you found online. Number 2, do not use generic or template language. And this is a big one right now. USCIS has seen a big jump in VAWA filings over the past few years, and they have started to notice that a lot of affidavits sound exactly the same. Same phrases, same structure, same story that could belong to anybody. Officers are not specifically trained to spot these. If your affidavit reads like it was copied from a form, it is going to be a problem. Your story needs to be unmistakably yours. Only you know what happened at your kitchen table at 8 p.m. the other night. Only you know what your spouse said to you when nobody else was around. And only you know what happened behind closed doors. These are the types of details that prove your story is real. Number 3, do not leave evidence gaps unexplained. Even though you are not required to explain why you may be missing evidence, it is always a good idea to explain why something might not be available to you. Explain why in your affidavit, why you may not have a police report or medical reports or proof of joint residences or other financial obligations, because USCIS will probably bring it up. You can even explain that if you don't have a police report because you were scared to call the police because you thought you would get deported because that's what your spouse told you. This explanation is probably more powerful by itself than even a police report. This shows more of the level of control that your spouse had over you. And number 4, do not contradict your own paperwork. I mentioned this already, but it's worth repeating because I do see the same mistake. Your affidavit and your forms and your I-360 and your I-485 all need to tell the same story. Make sure that they do not have different dates, different addresses, or different details that raise questions about your credibility. So before you submit anything, make sure you go through everything carefully and make sure that all the information matches. Now, once your affidavit is solid, there is a second thing that you can add to your case that can help boost your chances of getting approved. And it is something that pretty much everybody has access to. And this is a psychological evaluation. This should be done by a licensed mental health professional or a psychiatrist. Here is why it matters. If you were in an abusive marriage where the abuse was emotional, physical, or both, the chances are pretty high that you may be suffering from anxiety, PTSD, or even depression. You would actually be in the minority if you weren't suffering these things. And when a licensed professional puts this in writing and also explains the testimony that you recounted to them, it helps connect the abuse to actual real-life effects and to help bolster the argument that you were in fact a victim of either extreme cruelty or battery. And this is important because through the report, USCIS is not just hearing it from you, they are hearing it from a licensed professional. It independently confirms what your affidavit says. And I want to mention one more thing here. If you have people in your life that saw what you went through, your friends, your family, your coworkers, a neighbor, someone from your church, ask them to write you a witness statement to describe what they saw. These do not need to be long, but they can also help corroborate your accounts of what you went through and how the abuse affected and impacted your daily life. They should describe in their own words what they heard, what they saw, and what they experienced. These can carry real weight with USCIS, especially when written in a credible manner. Now, here's one thing. Everything I told you matters even more now with USCIS than it may have mattered several years ago. In December of 2025, USCIS completely rewrote the section of their policy manual that tells officers how to evaluate VAWA cases. It applies to every VAWA case, even ones that were pending when the update came out. So what changed? First, officers now have clearer instructions of what to look for at the quality and credibility of your evidence. Affidavits that lack detail or feel generic can be given significantly less weight when the officer makes their decision. Second, USCIS is now strictly requiring proof that you lived with your abuser during the qualifying relationship, meaning during the actual marriage itself. In the past, USCIS was a little bit more flexible about this. They would accept that you lived with your abuser at any point, even before or after the marriage. Now the policy says that you clearly have to establish that you and your spouse shared a residence during the marriage. So if you have any proof of that, including a lease with both names, utility bills, or mail at the same address with your names on it, or even a witness who can confirm residence, make sure you include it. And third, USCIS has said in writing that the burden of proof belongs to you. This is not new, but the fact that they're putting it in writing makes it even more clear that you have a responsibility to show that you are eligible for VAWA. An affidavit is going to be primary evidence of your eligibility, but if it's vague or if it lacks enough detail, the officer can decide that it's not enough. So the stronger your affidavit is from the start, the better. And building that kind of affidavit is exactly what my office does every single day. We don't just file VAWA cases, we help clients build them using their own words. Our team knows exactly what USCIS officers are looking for because we have been doing this for over 16 years and we have filed thousands of cases. We know how to help you tell your story in a way that is detailed, specific enough, and organized the right way so that when the officer sits down to read your affidavit, they will understand what you went through. So if you have experienced abuse or are thinking of filing for VAWA, or if you've already filed and are worried that your case is not strong enough, give us a call to schedule a case evaluation at 212-248-7907. We're based in New York, but we serve clients in all 50 states. And if you are wondering how long this process actually takes, from preparing your case to getting your green card and all the way to becoming a US citizen, I break down the entire timeline in this video, The Real VAWA Timeline 2026. I've been seeing a lot of confusion about what is considered to be the norm now that we are in Trump 2.0. And this video will help clear up as much as possible during every single stage. I'll include a link to that video here. Click now and I'll see you there.